Welcome to episode 6 of the Pandemic Podcast put on by Beta Academy. Your host, myself, Nakapan, and of course, Coach Lewis and Coach Jimmy. Today's guest, we have Professor Tom Schmitz. He comes to us from Minnesota. He has a school, Spartan Martial Arts. Where in Minnesota are you located, Professor?
Right outside St. Paul in a town called Oakdale.
Okay.
So it's kind of between Woodbury, Stillwater. It's kind of the East Metro, right before Wisconsin.
And we've known each other, as you said, probably estimated like 6 years. I remember we made contact over the phone. You gave me a call about something. I think then we were always trying to, we always got these different causes we're trying to fight against. Sometimes it's the IBJJF. Sometimes it's like, yeah, right, they're monopolies. And then we met each other, I believe, at the Iowa TBA Muay Thai tournament. And
but we're both under Pedro.
Yep.
And so I've been,
Tell us a little bit about your martial arts background and what got you started, why you started.
I started actually a little bit later than a lot of people that started getting into competing. I didn't start until I was 18. And I played hockey and soccer growing up. Then I moved on to like traditional martial arts. I did a kung fu and some karates and stuff. And then I liked them, but I wanted something a little bit more competitive. And then I got into something called jacket wrestling was my first competitive. It was a combination of like judo and jiu-jitsu. So that got me into some basic wrestling and judo. I did that with a small group for about 4 years. And then I discovered Minnesota Poly Group and I joined them. And I was there for about 6 years, but I was also about 3 years in, I switched to the Minnesota Martial Arts Academy under Greg Nelson at the same time. So I was going to Minnesota Poly Group, Minnesota Martial Arts Academy, and I was going to a boxing gym all at once. And I did that. And then only about a year in, Greg asked me if I wanted to go down to Evansville, Indiana, and fight a guy for $100 bare knuckle. So we drove 11 and a half hours. The trip cost me about $500 and I won $100. And I was kind of into it then and started doing as many kickboxing matches as I could. And this was in the 90s. I mean, there wasn't that many Muay Thai matches. I would have to go to Duke Rufus's gym and fight for him as an organizer. Great guy. He's always, I've been able to still chat with him. And then I did Extreme Challenge was most of my fights were in under Monty Cox. And I fought actually for the Extreme Challenge title. And I also fought in the Best of Best tournament were probably my two biggest accomplishments in that. And then I did the Grappling Games out in California, which back then was kind of a big tournament. I took second place in the expert division, no-gi. I lost to a guy, Paulo Guerrillo. I believe he's a multiple-time world champion. I beat Hermes Franca in the tournament. He was probably one of the bigger guys. And then Anthony Talone was in the same tournament with me. He teaches at Gracie Baja of Florida. So, yeah. Then,
wow. I remember Hermes Franca. He was, even in the UFC, he had green hair.
Yep, he fought actually one of my students, Sean Shirk.
Oh, Sean Shirk, of course, the muscle shark.
Yeah, he's him and I were training partners together. And then I blew my knee out pretty good. And I blew it out recreationally. I had my legs sitting on a chair and someone hit the side of the chair at a restaurant and it blew my knee out. So it was just a freak accident. And then John was doing really well at the time. He was like 22-0 or something like that. So I kind of moved into coaching him and being his main training partner. And I cornered him actually against Matt Hughes. And when he fought Matt Hughes for the title, about 2 years earlier, I fought Matt Hughes in the Best of the Best tournament. So I got to do some stuff. It's one of those things as a coach, what took me 20 years to learn and experience, hopefully I can give to my students in 10. I want to see them evolve. So I was at Minnesota Martial Arts Academy for about 15 years, and then I opened up my own place in 2010, Spartan Martial Arts in Oakdale. And we took, I believe, second place in the TBAs about 3 years ago. We've placed top 10 in a major IBJJF tournament as a single location. We've done some good stuff. I have a couple people doing well. We actually took 9th place or 6th place at Battle of Atlanta, I think, in Georgia for our IBJJF. And we had 9 competitors, I think, 8 won first places. Wow. So, and then my wife, Kelly Schmitz now, used to be Kelly Cobalt. She fought Gina Carano on CBS when right before, remember when Kimbo Slice got knocked out? She was the fight right before that.
Wow. Look at that.
My wife has more MMA fights than me.
You know, I was gonna go
That's
back.
the family dream. That's the dream team.
I was gonna go back for a second. There was a time where Sean Shirk, like the only people that beat him were like Matt Hughes and GSP and DJ Penn, but that's it. Like Sean Shirk beat everyone. Yeah, and he was a small welterweight, and he was really, really good, man. Sean Shirk was the man.
Well, and even against Matt Hughes for the title fight, he lost the first 2 rounds pretty badly, and then came back in the 3rd and 4th, and then lost the 5th. So he actually won 2-0, so 1 round difference.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember, I have a weird memory. I remember there was a 10-second bell left against BJ Penn, and he kind of relaxed and started to back up, and that's when BJ landed the flying knee on him.
Yeah, I remember that.
Pause. And St. Pierre he was good. John said when he hit him and took him down, it was like stuff he never felt before.
Yeah, and you came up. We kind of came up around the same time in terms of training martial arts in the '90s, and all the people you mentioned. It's such a small world. I know John Greg Nelson for a long time too. Amazing individual, awesome martial artist, and a good friend. It's great that I always say like martial arts keeps us all connected. Through this one greater than ourselves. So
it's even like I have students calling me on the regular basis right now, and they're like, I always took martial arts and a team for granted until I can't do it. And they didn't realize how many of their friends are through martial arts, and they're deep, meaningful friendships. Like I had a conversation with one of my wrestling instructors, and he talked about how 10 of his wrestling buddies are still his friends, and then the bond they have. And same with Jiu-Jitsu as he's gotten older. But a lot of the people that he's bonded with at Spartan, we have a lot of higher educated people that are all friends with each other. And it's pretty cool when I see the 20-year-old kid just getting into college talking to the 35-year-old executive, and he's helping them. Very rarely you get a chance to sit down with a guy at that level and get advice. But they rolled on the mat, and when you feel someone's energy, you instantly gain respect for them, even if you beat them, as long as they give you good energy. So the bond on the mat is different than anywhere else.
And so what's going on around your school now with the situation being what it is? Like we're obviously closed, and we're hoping to open up May 18th. How about yourself?
Our governor moved it to the 18th also. He added on 2 more weeks. A little of my concern is he says, I want to follow Georgia, and then instantly right afterwards, he says they're going to fail. So he's putting these words or covenants that it's not going to work. And I'm a little bit nervous about that. And I feel like a lot of healthy people are becoming unhealthy right now. And if they do catch it now, their bodies won't be ready for it. I feel like the lockdown should have been like a cold lockdown for maybe 2 to 3 weeks. And I actually have a idea later that we'll talk about, and this is a phase system of the lockdown. Is right now, I think being locked down too long is hurting us emotionally and physically, and our bodies won't be as ready for that attack if it does happen.
And we're gonna get into that now. One things that we did talk about, I remember maybe it was like 2-3 years ago. You called me up and you were saying that, hey, be careful about over sanitizing your gym for long periods of time because it's ruining our body flora, and there's a possibility that we could get some kind of like super bug. And you had something like this at one point, you know?
Yes. And also too, a little bit about me. Right now I'm working on several medical patents, and I have a medical team I work with. And one of my business partners actually did his college thesis and a couple of years study on coronavirus. And this was back in '98. So I do have a little bit more information on this. But yes, about 2.5 years ago, I was training, and I caught strep throat in my hand. And it's pretty rare to catch strep in your hand. And what happened was I was grappling, and someone had strep. I hit my nail on their throat or in their mouth a little bit, and it kind of ripped open. And normally your body flora can defend that. But because we had a bunch of kids that were sick and I was just over hand sanitizing, they think possibly I could have hurt my body flora on my hands. So I didn't have that same immune system to defend it. So I ended up in the ICU for 7 days. I had 106 temperature. They actually brought in a minister to read me my last rites. So it was pretty serious. But the worst thing was for about 4 days, they misdiagnosed it because they said I was in a gym, so they kept calling it MRSA. So they had me on the wrong antibiotics for about 4 days. And then when they switched the antibiotics, it was able to clear it pretty quickly.
Has that happened to anybody else that you know of, or have they seen that before? Or
I talked to a couple other doctors that have worked in certain level of cities, like Detroit, Kansas City. They have seen it more there, where the infection can happen there a little bit more so. The doctors here just weren't experienced with it as much. I went to a doctor, the first hospital by me, just thinking, and they were more into prenatal and birthing. So they weren't into that as much. So they ended up flying another surgeon in and do the surgery on me. So they had to run 9 liters of fluid through my arm. You can see I have some pretty good scarring here. They had scarring here. I had tubes run through my arms, and I gained 22 pounds in fluid because they ran so much fluid, and then I'd lose it the next day, and then they'd have to do it again. And so they flushed out. But I really appreciate the nursing staff. Hate to sound, the doctor was a little bit dismissive of me saying that I had strep. And finally, a nurse argued on my behalf to get me a strep test. And they got one, and then they're like, oh, sorry. And they switched my antibiotics right away.
yeah.
I definitely appreciate the caring of the nurse that day that helped out, because they were talking about amputating my arm because they couldn't figure out what was wrong.
I texting back and forth with you over the last couple of weeks. The last thing, you see the last pictures that were sent. You sent me the pictures of your hand, of the actual like surgery. Whatever they had to do was cut in there and pull out all that material. That was pretty gruesome. I don't think I can share that.
Yeah, they kept on asking me if I was left-handed or right-handed. And I'm like, I'm both. And it was an experience, to be in an ICU for 7 days. It is not, for these nurses, especially on the East Coast, that are going through this traumatic time, my heart does go out to them. When you have a patient in front of you that's sick, and a doctor and nurse, creates a bond with that person. So I don't really want to talk about New York because I don't understand that enough. We're going to talk about a few of these things, kind of the 80 percentile. New York is kind of at the top spectrum, and we're not going to talk about Billings, Montana, that has no cases either. Small town versus this. We're going to talk more about Minnesota. That's what some of the stuff I understand a little bit more, and been doing a lot of research. And even the research you do find on the internet is misleading. I saw a thing the other day that said 93% of people will get a fever from corona. But same organization said later, 50% are asymptomatic. So that means no symptoms. So is it 93% of 50%? That's confusing, so it's same organization. So hopefully today our conversation can make some people think a little bit.
Yeah. So you started a website and a movement. We say at 1927logic.com. You want to tell us something about that?
Yeah, it's I've been going to these protests and been talking to some of the people and organizers, and most of them are in their 60s, if not late 60s. And it seemed very confusing because I feel like we've been told by the media that we're doing this for the older people. And talking to the older people, especially been talking to this, she's about 65, 68 years old. She's an ICU nurse. She was telling me how quite a few of her patients in her thing have been hurt because they haven't been able to continue with these so-called non-essential operations. She had a woman that came in and they put a stent in her kidney, and she was supposed to come back in for the surgery in 2 days, and it was considered non-essential, so they left the stent in there for 6 weeks, and it ended up getting majorly infected and had to do emergency surgery, and I believe she lost that kidney. So she was kind of stressed out, and she's also an ICU nurse right now that is furloughed. Yeah. So she was kind of an interesting person for me to talk to. And when I've been going to these protests, I feel like we're putting left versus right, Republican versus Democrat. I want to see people unite a little bit more. It's not about the differences as much as our commonality. We need to come together a little bit more. There's all types of people that own small businesses that are being destroyed, but I feel like too many people are carrying Trump flags or I'm this versus we're small businesses that need to open up. And we just need to get maybe hopefully some new perspective. So I have a doctor writing some stuff on the website. And we need numbers. They need to hear our masses to say, hey, something's going wrong here.
Let me ask you about those rallies, though. When you're going to them, when they're being portrayed online or through the media as, I guess, like white supremacist, automatic weapon carrying, so swastika waving, Confederate flag wearing peoples. Like, what is your experience there? What have you seen?
Now, I have to say this. Anyone that puts on a protest or rally will get 10% jerks to go there just to yell stupid stuff and not even be a part of the rally, just to shake things up. From my experience overall, I've only seen one person with a gun. All of them I've been to. And I mean, there's been 10 to 12,000 people. I've seen one person with a gun, and I kind of asked about it, and they said there was another group threatening them, which I don't know about. And it was more hired security. It wasn't like just regular people walking around with guns. So they hired a certain level of security that they put on each corner, and most of them had their guns in there, so it wasn't like, look at me, I got, my AK-47. And then most of the people are older, they're in their 60s. And one lady said, one of the things that bothers her right now is they're trying to say they're doing this for me. She goes, I'm the older person. Yes, there is a certain age group that has to take this serious, but they're at the age that it's easier to lock them down and have their family work with them. Like my 92-year-old grandpa, who takes care of himself, we've had to do some family adjustments where my aunts drop food off for him 10 feet from his door, and we're being very careful with him. He's 92 years old. So, but anyways, going back to the nurse I was talking to, is she's like, you're not doing this for me. You're doing it to feel good about yourself. It's like, it's cool to say down with money, up with life. But there's a weird balance in there. What are the collateral damage? Heart attacks are up 25%, auto accidents, suicide. So you do have valuable life over here, the corona patients, but you also have valuable life over here. And it's going to be hard to calculate right now, but suicides, car accidents, strokes, people will get a minor stroke, and then they fear to go to the hospital because they might get corona because they see everyone with masks and everyone everywhere. And so they get this fear. Heart attacks are up 25%, at home because of stress levels, and then they're scared to go. A certain drugstore just put out that 40% of people aren't picking up their medications. What's going to happen in 3 months when people aren't picking up their diabetes medication? So there's going to be a lot of, it's not money versus life. There is life versus life, and then there is an economic portion that comes in. Now, the economic portion, to me, my fear is the guy and husband and wife that each made 40 grand a year, she lost her job or he lost their job, and their income dropped. They're not going to buy vegetables. They might not pick up that medication. They might not be able to sign their son up for sports that will create obesity, insecurities, and other health issues. So I think there's a balance here. I'm not smart enough. Hopefully there's a really smart actuary that can balance this. The only problem I feel like with some of the corona patients right now, 90% of them are from nursing homes. 99% have been proven to have an other major medical condition that was the underlying cause. So this person that committed suicide over here, 100% stress levels, this and that, or the car accident or the stroke. Over here, I hate to sound this way, is how many of these deaths haven't changed. When we hear these numbers, we were, last week, I think we were at 389 deaths and 317 of them were from nursing homes. And just throwing numbers out there, 63% of people die in the first year of being put into a nursing home. 53 die in under 6 months. Nursing homes have changed fundamentally in the last 20 years. They are not where you move to stay for 20 years and have, those are more like living long, elderly homes, long-term living. Nursing homes are a little bit different. My niece works at a nursing home right now. They've had 0 COVID patients there. They have about 50 people. It's a smaller nursing home. But last week, they got asked to move in COVID patients to their nursing home. To me, I don't understand that. You're moving in a COVID patient who's highly contagious into a nursing home with other people that lower immune system, and then you're paying someone $12 to $16 an hour to look out for them with limited materials and very limited education in taking care of a COVID patient. I don't understand that personally. I mean, I feel like that's going to spread worse, you know? So I do feel like there's a lot of concern, and
I feel like, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. It's a weird moment right now because it's almost like there's information out there, but nobody knows what to believe, right? Like everybody says one thing, and it's like, it becomes a polar issue where people are like, it's not a big deal. And then people are like, it's a super big deal, right? And then we got all these other things about that Wuhan lab, right? Like then that comes out, and then what kind of thing are we going through? At these, you know a lot of people that go to these protests and stuff like that. Have a lot of people come out of those things catching the corona, or have you heard of anyone catching it or anything like that?
To the nurses, because there's a group of nurses that have been going to these, and they said, we've been to this X, we've been tested, and none of us have caught it. In Minnesota, she was telling me, one of the nurses, she works at 3 different ICUs, and none of them are very busy. Also, too, because non-essential, so-called non-essential things are being taken away. Cancer treatments. My dad can't go to his cancer treatments right now, or Agent Orange checkups. What happens if this goes 4 more months? Will my dad have a higher likelihood? You know, I mean, some of these essential surgeries or non-essential surgeries, you know, I mean, they can't go to chemo treatment, so cancer patients. There's a lot of other things here. I think there's going to be a lot of deaths over here that won't be calculated for 4 or 5, 6 months. And just other health issues. You know, missing medication for 2 or 3 months would not be good. Also, too, we're on lockdown. Most people have gained 20 pounds. So say you were borderline obese.
30 pounds over here.
Yeah, 30 pounds. And you gain 30 pounds, you become obese. 75% of corona victims have been obese. So you went from being able to maybe handle this, then alcoholism. I know people are drinking a bottle a night. Liquor sales are through the roof. That lowers your immune system. Not being in touch with other people hurts your body flora. So I feel like at a certain point, we're going to come off this, and we've almost been on lockdown too long for our body to take this. South Dakota didn't do a lockdown. They actually have more contagions, but their survival rate is really high. So does that mean when you're happy and healthy, you're more likely to survive this? Because they have that typically ratio-wise more contagions, but they're 1/5 the deaths as us.
Yeah, this is an interesting kind of dynamic that we talk about. You've been talking about this balance. You know, a lot of it from what we're speaking from also is, you know, we have all these people that we know in our family that could get it, these people at risk. We want to keep them safe. At the same time, we work or we would like to work because we have a small business that requires us to put energy into it in order to continue to get livelihood out of it. And I think that's kind of like, where do we draw the line of, do we continue this method of containment or they're calling it mitigation, you know, and when do we begin to open things up? And also, you know, I mean, there's a lot of different topics here. So,
and I just want people to say, it's not economics versus life. It's not that clear cut. There's a certain amount of economics need these hospitals go. I mean, the Mayo Clinic is asking for a $3 billion bailout. What if a lot of these hospitals go out of business because of this? Where are you going to go?
We spoke to a doctor that trains at our school last week, and he was saying that his hospital is empty. You know,
yeah,
and
so they're not making money.
Yeah,
so money does make capitalism go around. We're a capitalist country. Doctors have to have money. Medications. Right now, I've read up to 150 essential medications aren't being made because they're made by China that are for our elderly. So what happens in 3 months when we run out of certain medications? I've heard we've been running lower on inhalers, which I feel sorry for the people with asthma, because asthma is one of the things that is dangerous for the flu or corona. So there's some things that we're not thinking 1 or 2 chess moves ahead. We got to think 4 or 5 ahead. That's collateral damage over here. Number of heart attacks are through the roof. Stress, all this other stuff. There's also, too, I hate to say this, and this would be really hard to quantify, is loss of years. So you have a 62-year-old that was about to retire. He can't retire because he lost everything. He would have lived to 85 on average. Now he has to go back to work. He's stressed out in his alcoholism. What years of life has he lost because of that? And I know this is like you have the scales, economics, but it's like a four-way balance. It's not economics versus life. It's more complicated. If you don't mind, I was just going to kind of say my idea of a phase system of doing a lockdown, because the problem with Americans, we're never going to do a clean lockdown. Because for us to do a clean lockdown, we're going to have 3 weeks cold turkey. You couldn't go anywhere, and it could have burned out the disease. But then the doctors, police officers, firemen would have had to stay at a hotel with no cross-contamination. That's the only way to truly burn out a disease. It's impossible. When you go to Home Depot and you see 600 people in line, there's too much cross-contamination. There's too many points of contact. But I kind of came up with this
background, though, a little bit. So you have a business partner who is an infectious disease. He's a neurologist, a doctor. And
but he has thesis on infectious disease.
Okay. And that's why I'm trying to give you a little bit of background so that you can tell us, what you guys feel your.
Yes. And I have 2 business partners that are both doctors. One is a little bit more nervous about this, and one is not. The one is a cardiologist, and he sees what he does. The other one is a neuro doctor, but his undergrad and everything else, and his thesis and everything was on actual coronavirus. And he wrote it in 1998. And the spread of coronavirus. One of the only things that didn't work was a lockdown. And remember, Corona came through here in 2002. There were many times Corona came through here. This Corona is a little different from what I understand. It's the coronavirus attached to SARS. So SARS is more dangerous. Corona is more transferable. So when you mix these 2 proteins, you have the dangerous side and you have the contagious side. Now, what does that dangerous side mean? The dangerous side means when you have a low immune system, dangerous, or very old or very unhealthy. For the people under the age of 65 even, and in relative shape, very, very low risk factor. Because even from Italy, it was 65 and older, and we know that data. Or from China, it was 65 and older, and Italy was in the 80s. Minnesota, average age is 84. So we know from the data right now. But I'm going to take one quick minute and talk about, I got a notebook here. So my idea would have been a phase system. The first phase would have started, phase 1 would have been 3 months long. And that would have been for people 75 and older with autoimmune or other health issues. And we would have done that. And you got 3 months, and we would have set up a special delivery task force for them. People, because we had limited Corona tests. So we could test those. They drop off food supplies and this at 6 feet away from the door. They also could, any delivery could have been 100% tax deductible, or set up something with some of these major deliveries that they would do it at a reduced rate. And we started with that for 3 months. 3 weeks later, we add in 65 to 75-year-olds, and they get 3 weeks off. Okay. Then next, after that is done, we do 55 to 60-year-olds for 2 weeks. Now, by the data that we know, people under the age of 65, very low risk factor. Well, that would have gave 3 months for the majority of the healthy people to build up enough antibodies to help the older people with immune issues to come off of this, because we could have gave them antibodies from our own body, which in Detroit, they're proving that to work. So they're taking antibodies in March already to give to very unhealthy people. There was a woman that had a brain issue with it that was very rare, but it was very severe. So they had to give them antibodies. And for antibodies to be in a community long enough, it's minimum 2 months. So was Corona here from patient 0, January 19th? Or how many of your students had that upper respiratory syndrome in November and December?
I was about to say that.
And tested negative to the flu. They tested negative to the flu, but they had, so that would have been a very interesting, because imagine if we released the data that 70% of Americans already had this and are asymptomatic. Then it wouldn't be as scary. Right now, all we hear is death numbers, which we've never heard before. Death numbers are scary, especially nowadays. You don't go to funerals very often. You don't actually see a relative die very often or see anyone die. So when you hear 389 people died, that sounds very scary. But in Minnesota, on average, 20 people die a day from nursing homes and 120 people die in the state. So if you heard that every day, that would be a weird number. And I'm not putting down anyone's death. I almost died last year. I held my mom's hand while she died at age 59 from brain and lung cancer. You know, I watched her eyes the last moment of her life. Was not easy. So I don't wish it upon anyone. Everyone deserves to live as long as they can, as healthy as they can. I mean, it's but I'm also fearful for the 62-year-old guy that goes to Walmart and he sees everyone in hazmat outfits and super scary. And then when he feels, you know, something wrong in his body and he refuses to go to the doctor because he's so afraid, his life is just as valuable, you know. Or the military guys right now I've talked to and had communications with that aren't allowed to go to their psych meetings, you know, that are very important, you know. So there's a lot of weird stress going on. Yeah, and it's not as easy as life versus economics. That'd be an easy choice, but it's life versus life with this under economic tone to it, which will really teeter it to one side.
Louis, do you have something you were about to say?
Yeah, we had Dr. Jersey on. He's an internal medicine guy. And we kind of talked to him about this antibodies thing, but he said it wasn't proven yet, this antibodies. He said, I mentioned this guy from New Jersey, Tom DeBlas. He took a test, and the test shows that he has the antibodies for it, which means he must have had it in December. He got cured, and now he has these antibodies. And I asked Justin, hey, if people come to us and they have all these antibodies, that should mean that they could train, right? And he said that's not necessarily true yet. I guess that hasn't been proven. Have you heard about that?
Yes, but I mean, also, what do you mean by not being? Yes, I've heard that you can catch it more than once, but they develop antibodies every time. Right now, the best thing is to be healthy when you catch something like this. Have your body flora ready. If we kill all our body flora, we're not going to be ready for anything. If we start living in a bubble, we're all going to get strep throat in our hand. You know what I mean? It's like our body is this machine. It's like weightlifting a muscle. You stop weightlifting, it gets weak. And so, I mean, there are many articles about them using antibodies in Detroit already. So they're taking it out of a serum, you know, they spin it in a subterfuge, separate it, and then give antibodies. So, yes, because I think what your doctor's probably saying is Tom DeBlas has it, had antibodies. Doesn't mean he can't give it to someone else. I think that's maybe the point, and that's possibly true. But at what point? So if you want to go back to the flu of 1918, which I believe was an H1N1, similar to this, some of the things, people died between 18 and 23 at an alarming rate. And then there was another era that died. They believe a weaker one came through in the 1890s and gave certain people an immune system. So the people that weren't exposed to a lesser virus couldn't handle the stronger virus. You know, I mean, ask any immunologist, I get bad at saying that, they will say that you need a certain amount of bacteria in your body to learn to be stronger. You know, and the thing is, like I was saying with that phase system, those antibodies would have been for people with autoimmune issues and other things. So hopefully we could have gave it to them, and by then the virus burnt out.
Again,
right now,
the disclaimer, of course, is that we are not doctors, but that we are sharing our opinions on all this. And I was going to ask you too later on if you give us your opinion on what you feel a way out of this is, given this where we're at.
Basically, reverse the phase system. We're going to have to say open up for 55 and under by your choice. If you feel strongly about it, you can still stay home, but open it up for businesses and by choice. I mean, it is freedom to live and freedom to die. And I hate to sound cold like this. Then we got to get rid of skateboarding because skateboarding deaths are too high. We can't drive over 40 miles an hour. We have a freedom to live and a freedom to experience. I want life. You know, I want to live life. I have a different perspective. I mean, I've had my last rites read into me 3 times. I had a blood clot go through my brain and heart when I was 12 years old, stopped breathing for over 2.5 minutes. I got stung by multiple bees, and they had to shoot my heart up with 2 shots of adrenaline, and I almost died last year. So it's given me a different perspective. I also held my mom's hand at 59 and watched her pass. My mom didn't live life. She smoked chronically, ate horribly, and drank pop all day. It was sad, but it was a hard thing. You know, my mom had agoraphobia, so fear of the marketplace. So I experienced that. My dad is a 70-year-old man, Vietnam era vet. He was mostly in Korea, but no one knows about those era guys. But he has Agent Orange poisoning. He can't go to his treatments. He can't go to any of his checkups, and he has 2 kinds of cancer he's had. He's battled through both of them. He actually had them in his early 50s. His goal is to make it 70. Now, my dad's in the middle of Wisconsin by himself, drinking way too much. He's lonely. He's a very social man. He would rather get out and live his life and live 2 years than be stuck there by himself for another year and a half. I've seen some proposals. Will that get rid of his life completely? I mean, will he suffer depression, a stroke, stress heart attack? He's gained 30 pounds. He's a 200-pound man. He's 235 now. He's losing his health. My dad's life is just as valuable as my grandpa's life. He's 92. It was easy for us to lock down my grandpa and do delivery. He's 2 hours away from any city, so our family had to get together to help him. And we did that for him. But, he's very fearful. He's 92. That's his right. But my dad wants to go out. He's like, if I want to come down and visit you, Tommy, I'm coming down there. It's like, I can't handle this anymore. But I know we want to shout down with economics, up with life. Sometimes that's a selfish thing. Because I asked that person, when's the last time you went to an old folks home to visit someone that you didn't know? Not a relative, just to go talk to someone.
Got him.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever delivered food to a nursing home? Have you ever helped an elderly person in your neighborhood? What have you done to help them? You only care now because it's fashionable. And a lot of the elderly I'm talking to, now there's 85 and older is a different kind of elderly. Yes, be locked down, but you're not working. It's easy to lock you down. It's your choice to be locked down. And if you're 85 and you want to go out and about, go out and about. But we will help you lock down. But also that 70-year-old man that wants to live life. I had a guy bump into me at the drugstore the other day. He's 70 years old. He starts teasing me about social distancing. And he's like, you know what? I'm 70 years old. I still jog. I still live. I'm going to make this. And if I don't, God takes me, and that's his choice. I live my life, and I'm not going to stop living. So a lot of the older people I've talked to between 65 and late 70s are like, I want to live my life. I've lost my pension. I've lost this. It's different choices, and there's different fear factors. And right now, I mean, hopefully I'm in an interesting spot that I have a father I want to see live, and I have a grandfather I want to see live. They both deserve living. So please don't look me in the face and say you're only worried about economics, because I'm the guy that goes to old folks' homes. I'm the guy that helps the elderly. I pay for elderly people's groceries. If we care, and I'm going to go on a low time rate, if we care about the elderly so much, why do we pay those people $12 an hour to work there to start, and $16 an hour with very limited education? My nieces work there right now, and my family's always kind of done that. My mom did, my sister did, both my nieces. Through my teens and 20s, my dad would always volunteer me for elderly bowling leagues because he ran the American Legion. And then afterwards, I go visit some of them in the nursing home. And yes, the last 15 years, I have not done it like I used to. But I do help out a couple elderly people weekly. It's every day I wake up. So don't tell me I don't care about the old people.
Yeah. No question. You do care about the everybody in your care and the people are going. You've done a lot of research in this too, so I really appreciate you sharing a lot of your insights on.
I have a form of ADD that I've been reading 16 hours a day. My wife thinks I'm crazy. I don't read just the internet, which is nice. I put my internet stories together and I send them off to 5-6 different doctors, and then they give me. And I do have a couple doctors that have different concerns. I have one doing a lot of open surgeries, and he is afraid of the blowback and stuff hitting him. He wants to be separate from his kids a little bit, and I respect that. But then I have another doctor who's like completely different, both doing surgeries, and he's like, I'm healthy, I work out. I take that risk every year. He's worked in some of the worst hospitals and been stuck with needles from people. He's like, always concerned.
Yeah. So it's taking a shift now that we've talked a lot about, the people and, and life. What about the economic side? What are you seeing? The government is trying to throw us some lifelines, trying to print a whole bunch of money. I have my own, we all have our opinions about that, and, how they're trying to help small businesses, because I think we're kind of being left out on the lurch here. What's your experience with that?
Well, I did mortgages. I had a real estate company for about a few years. And when I was younger, I was told to sit down with older people and ask them about their life experiences. So I had a house in our neighborhood that had an older with a caretaker. And I'd go sit in the garden with them and chat, even when I was about 15 years old. And I'd ask them about life experiences. And I would talk to this older gentleman, and he told me, buy silver. Silver is like a man walking upstairs with a yo-yo. It always goes up and down, but it is your safety net. You usually will be able to buy a brand new car with a pound of silver at any time. You know, it was kind of an interesting thing, or a pound of gold. You could always buy a brand new Cadillac, the value of it. Now a pound of gold is ridiculous. But, you know, even if the downs, ups and downs, it's always going to finish up. And right now, it's an interesting time.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that with you too.
Yeah. I want to talk about the PPP a little bit first.
Yes, yeah. That's why I want to back up to there, because I know like precious metals right now, and I guess things like Bitcoin, like people are looking for other ways to keep their store of value in the currency that they have, because they're debasing this currency every day. Apparently, we're like what, $4 trillion in already, and they're gonna print more trillions of dollars. So I can only imagine that you know, value all around is going down. But have you been able to catch some of this helicopter money, this PPP money, or anything otherwise?
I was very lucky. Working in real estate many years ago, I was told what banks to work with and what banks not to. There's a couple of major banks, I'm not going to announce their names, that they're very difficult. So say me and you both work at the same, we have funds at the same bank. You're in debt $1 million and I'm in debt $0, and we both need the PPP. They're going to help you before me, because they want to see you succeed to repay their debt. Not to sound shallow, but it's economics. You know, I was able to get a small amount, which a lot of people in our industry, the way they file their taxes is very difficult to get anything, because they only give you roughly 2.5 times your W-2'd employees. So if you don't have W-2'd employees, it's really hard to do a pass-through, or just where they pay you at the end of the year, a bonus. You know, so basically I pay myself W-2 through my business. So I had to do an entity where I set up a separate bank account. I paid myself through another entity. And so I was able to do 2.5 times that, which isn't great. And to help out with the bills, it helped out a little bit. But I negotiated with my landlord a little bit. I got him to come down about 25% for the next 2 months, which was a great help. And with the paychecks protection, hopefully between those two, I'll be able to make it to August, September. I'm already set up for. But my fear is I've lost, 40% of students, and a lot of them have been awesome. They've called me and they're like, keep charging me through this situation. I know your business won't make it, and I wouldn't make it without them. Now, the other 40%, I would say 39% of them have called me almost teary-eyed that they had to quit. And it wasn't that they got unemployment. They just had their wages cut so much at their current job. So, or one of them lost their job. So even the students, they said, we'll be back once we're back on our feet. So I'm really proud of my students. The trickle up effect from these stimulus checks, a lot of my students really understand that. They're getting these $1,200 bonuses and $600 extra bonuses to help pay businesses like mine, because the amount of money we got is very little. And will it be forgiven at the end? We have to document, as school owners, if you do get a $10,000 check for the PPP, you have to document everything. You got to document this was W-2 paid. If you do pay your landlord, ask the landlord to do a separate check, write him a separate check for the Paychecks Protection Program, and then itemize it on the deduction. And if you're able to get your landlord to do anything with your rent, make sure it's not deferred, because then you just got to pay it later. Make sure that you set it up as rent forgiveness. What I did was I sat down with my landlord and I kind of gave him my books, what's going on. And my fear is not just these 2 months, it's the next 6 months and the slow thing. But I built several businesses. I'm willing not to pay myself the rest of the year to make this business work. And I will do that. I'm lucky I have a wife still working. She works for the state. She's able to, help support us through this. I'm not going to be able to pay myself pretty much from after the Paychecks Protection Program, those 2 checks I get through that, I'm not going to pay myself the rest of the year, basically.
Yeah, I want to give a quick
Do
shout
that
out
for students.
to our sponsors, of course, our students. Thank you
That's
very much
right.
for supporting us. And that's for one of the reasons why I want to continue to produce good content for you guys. Stay connected with y'all, and we really do appreciate you. Also, a big shout out to TD Bank, and Michael Law, who's our banker, tried to get our PPP approved. Again, as you said, there are a lot of hurdles with this.
I use Bridgewater.
What's that?
In Minnesota. I use a bank called Bridgewater. They're not a huge bank, but they're very personable. They called me personally day by day. They helped me walk through the program. It was not easy because, I'm a little account. They're doing stuff for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm over here for 10 grand. And 10 grand may sound like a lot, but to run a gym like ours, the bills.
Yeah, see them every day.
You know what rent is and even maintaining the heat up here. And I turned our heat way down during this closure, but some of the other things gym owners are going to think, we're going to have to throw away a lot of our gloves. There's not going to be communal gloves anymore at gyms. You have gloves at your gym that borrow out, and those are going to have to be gone. Mats, any scratches or dents or holes in them, gone. So we're going to have to look at some other funds of money that we're going to have to put into the gym. I had some of the little students, they wrote posters and put them on our front door the other day. We miss you, Spartan, you're essential. I got some families that don't make a ton of money and they're still paying their payment every month.
Yeah. We've had a lot of people calling us too about that. I think we might've lost the feed. Did we lose them?
Maybe, but we could keep talking.
Yeah. Again, we've had some really, really awesome supporters from the school too. Like Aulio give us a call and say, hey man, I really want to make sure I pay.
Happened, and we had heart-to-heart conversations. So
we lost you for a second there, but I was just saying that I really do want to appreciate our students too. Some of the students have called us, and even though maybe their credit cards were had expired, they called us back and made sure they wanted to pay their dues. So thank you again, for making that contribution to the school. We really do appreciate you. And going back, you're saying throwing away your gloves. Obviously we're all both going to have to make, and all the schools going to have to make some huge changes coming forward. We just spent a whole bunch of money on buying a barrier. People will walk through the front desk. Got to figure out what to do with the shoes. We got to buy a whole bunch of face masks that we have to make available if people don't bring theirs. So there are a lot of expenses that are kind of coming in on the front end to get open. And especially if we want to follow these government guidelines that we've been given, which to me on the law, to operate in that manner on a long term is not economically feasible. If you can only have 10 people in a class, how long?
Well, statistically too, our gyms are under the age of 45 and healthy. There is almost no issues. And I know that us catching it, they say we can give it to someone else. Well, if I'm at a certain point, if we all lock down, we don't touch each other, right? So if 55 and under aren't locked down and we don't get to touch the 85-year-old, either way, we don't get to touch the 85-year-old. They say it's unfair, but we're all locked down. If you're at risk, I feel truly sorry for the people with the autoimmune issues. I feel like a certain number of people like that are in a horrible situation, and they're going to have to do 3 points of contact to make sure their kids and this and that. Like us, our family, we drop stuff 10 feet off in front of my grandpa's door to make him feel comfortable.
I got, in my household, I have a 85-year-old grandmother, definitely at risk. I have my mother has got liver disease. She's 62 years old, immunocompromised, and they're still I want to live my life. I want to figure this out and just get out. So, we're always trying to balance all these things at the same time. I'm the one who's doing all the food runs at this moment, but I definitely can see where, and my grandmother, who's used to walking everywhere, has now been confined to the house. So she's beginning to lose more of her ability to do physical things, which is.
And that's that collateral damage. What years of life are we even if your grandma doesn't catch corona, what years are we taking off her life?
Yeah.
And mobility and health and other things. It's a hard number to quantify. And this is stuff I haven't heard one governor talk about. It's just number of corona deaths is important versus econ. And it's not that easy. There's another whole group of life that we're losing over here. And then there's going to be another group of life that we're going to lose in 3 to 6 months because of not taking your medication for 3 months. the guy that had prostate cancer that would have normally went in right away that got too far. You know, my dad had prostate cancer, and that's what happened to him. I mean, it was like, if he would have went in 6 months different versus not 6, he would have lost his prostate. I mean, it was pretty dramatic. I mean, it can be pretty aggressive. Yeah. So there's different situations. I mean, he can't go in for his Agent Orange checkups. He can't go in this, you know, I mean, I think everybody's life is valuable, and that's the hard thing. It's not life versus economics. It's life versus life. And then economics does matter. We don't live in a fairyland that we don't think money matters. You don't have enough money. You don't eat good vegetables. You don't buy your medications. You're not able to do other things. You know, I mean, just a certain level. You don't need to be rich, but you need to be able to do certain things.
Yeah. So now, what are your plans as to how you're going to reopen? Like, do you have any? We have plans. We're just trying to compare them with other people. What's your plan for reopening?
So each person is going to need their own comfortable. If they're truly not comfortable, or if they're living at home with an autoimmune issue person, or if they're in a medical field that they are touching someone too much, they should come to the gym right now. That's partly to make other people comfortable. One of the things I was thinking about is doing a log book where people take their temperature 3 times a day. And if their temperature changes, maybe they take 2 extra days off, you know, and they have to contact their group of 4. We put like the 4 white belts together that roughly weigh the same. We put them in groups, and we're pretty lucky with the size of our gym. You know, we have like 3,000 square feet of mat on one side. So you can kind of keep it. The warm-ups would be a little different, not running in a circle, not being interactive as much. You're going to kind of have like zones and small groups. If people want to wear face masks, they can. There's a few different ones I saw out there. I'm trying to talk to a group about being a case study of a quick inhaler test. So there's a clinical trial, and I want us to try to be the off clinical trial and be in a less sterile zone of testing it. One of my doctor friends are pretty high up at a clinic that we're negotiating, and possibly with a group of Israel that has a quick test. So right now our FDA just isn't accepting it. It has, I think, a 98% accuracy or something crazy. So it's just getting it through our FDA and some stuff like that. So hopefully, for me, it's what the government says and what makes my student comfortable. I will do whatever it takes to help build the gym back. And I just want to see people getting back to health. You know, I talked to a student, he gained 22 pounds. I talked to another student that was talking about a friend at our gym that's been drinking a bottle a night. You know, it's, and you know, you've had a lot of heart-to-hearts with military people. You've had heart-to-hearts with divorces. We're not just a martial arts school business. We hopefully help the community. I mean, I got written a couple letters a year ago from you would never think this man. 6'6", 285. He was gonna go in the NFL, ended up breaking his back, was in NFL, got addicted to drugs, was thinking suicide. He joined the academy when I was there, but no one would work out with him because he was such a big giant. And then once I started working out with him, the whole team accepted him. And then he told me how I saved his life. So he's still there.
Yeah. Is there any kind of local government that's giving you guidelines or anything? Because we're not getting too much. But you mentioned training in groups. Like, is there any kind of government that's allowing you to do that?
They haven't really done anything. It's kind of South Dakota never closed down. You know, they were like, your constitutional right to be open. If you're old, you're this. You know, we'll help you lock yourself down if you want. But it's hard because under age 45, our demographic is not really at much risk for this. Now, I do have a few students that have family members that are at risk. I think they should stay home, you know, and we'll do whatever we can to keep online and certain stuff like that to help them to hopefully keep their martial arts going. And I definitely appreciate them. But it's a hard time. What really works? How long does the virus last? I mean, really? So there's something that, do you know what the R naught factor is?
The amount of contagiousness the disease is.
Yes. What's the lowest the R naught factor's ever been?
That I don't know.
1.7. It has to be under 1 for everyone not to catch it. So no matter what, from the beginning, Fauci, everyone said, everyone will catch this. What I'm confused about, we weren't supposed to spike it. Everyone's supposed to catch this. It's so contagious. We just don't want to spike. As high as 4, it's been in some areas. So even at 1.7, everyone will catch it. We don't want to spike. That's why I thought of the phase system. We could do it in phases so the hospital wants to spike, and we would have enough beds for the people that truly need it. Remember, everyone was supposed to catch this. I don't know when it switched to people weren't supposed to catch this. Right. You know, I mean, if it's that contagious, everyone will catch it. And that's the hard thing for me to balance.
I have a friend, Dr. Reggie. He's a cardiologist also.
We got to bring him on the podcast eventually.
Maybe he's the next guy. He said a couple of things. He said that social isolation impacts health. So, yep, that's a big one. He also mentioned that we need to start questioning 1 or 2 weeks before entering, then leading up to re-entry, since everyone is asymptomatic before becoming symptomatic, usually like a disease. Now, he also said one more thing about herd immunity during the last podcast. He said something about that there's something to herd immunity, but that this is a novel virus and that we don't know enough about it and how it responds and mutates as a RNA virus that is an absolute and brilliant infectious machine, something like that.
But we do know statistically 70% are asymptomatic, will never show a sign. Never. We know that. There's enough data out there.
So
we know
70% of people can catch it and they don't get any symptoms.
Exactly.
Wow.
And even our CDC, that's a European study, our CDC says 50%. No symptoms. And that's why they say it's scary catching it. That's why everyone will catch it. At what point, though, I mean, can we be locked down for 3 years? I mean, at what point? I mean, the Hong Kong flu killed 130,000 people in America. We weren't locked down at all. It was very contagious. I believe it was an H3N2. You know, it was very contagious, very this. We only had 200,000 people in America, but America did survive. We will survive this, but we will not survive the type of economic breakdown that will happen if we're locked down for 1.5 years. I mean, the state of Iowa has lost 600 restaurants already, and they didn't even do a full lockdown. That's 30,000 employees. Now, please don't say it's life versus economics right now. That's not what I'm saying. If it was truly just life versus economics, we had to shut down for a certain period of time. We can't live in a fairyland. Money does supply doctors, medication, and hospitals. That goes away. What will be the death toll in 2 years?
I think also, as we, touching upon that, one thing that really exacerbates the situation too is also the government response to the pandemic. Like it's almost like arbitrary who's getting money, who do they want to help, but really both sides, Republicans and Democrats, want to help the banking system. And we see all the bailouts that are going to them, all the money, even the PPP had to go through the banks and they were getting their cuts beforehand. So I mean, a lot of it is also this need that's being created because people are not getting the help that they, economic help from the government they need. And going back to what you were saying, which is how long does this lockdown last? Right? I'm hearing bill proposals for let's pay everybody $2,000 a month for as long as right until 3 months after the pandemic's over. Let's cancel everybody's rent and mortgage. Let's give everybody universal health care. These things all sound great. It's just the only problem is they're just printing this money out of thin air. I mean, the Fed.
Well, and that's completely socialist then. I mean, how do you get off socialism once you're on socialism? No one, the 22-year-old that doesn't work for 2 years isn't going to go back to work. It's going to be very hard.
And that's what they're saying is once you start the printing presses and giving people money, that can't stop. Because, this is obviously no one's working. Things aren't being produced. So it's going to be we're going to see shortages moving forward, hopefully not too long, but this is kind of like the reality of everything.
And I hate to say something that's scary. We've killed 2 million chickens recently, 200,000 pigs, tons of beef. We shut down all these factories. The food we eat today was made 6 months ago. The food that we're killing now, 43 million gallons of milk, what are we going to have in 6 months?
Right. And that, again, going
and
back,
economics matters for food. I mean, the farmer doesn't work for free. The factory doesn't work for free. So please stop saying economics versus life. It's life versus life.
I take it back to these politicians and these monopolies and these bankers and these elites that are trying to monopolize every industry, and so that's therefore like there's no small I guess slaughterhouses or to get meat. It's all kind of one big gigantic entity now, and that having to shut down makes it so that all the suppliers can't get the food to the processors, who can't get the food to the consumers. Now
in the last financial crisis, when people lost their houses, so the houses, huge corporations were able to buy $10,000 lots or 10,000 houses for like pennies on the dollar. And then they basically did these land trusts where you never own your house, you have to rent, you have to pay $99 a month. What happens to all these restaurants that go under? Are we going to have huge corporations buy them all and then basically rent them back to the previous owners? I mean, what level of capitalism and we're going to lose? And then I don't want to go down like crazy Eddie Bravo, weird conspiracy. They're monitoring their phones more. They're doing this. They've added Facebook, off Facebook tracking time. So even though it's Facebook organized it, it's called off Facebook tracking time. There's all of that craziness. I don't want to talk about that. I just want to talk a little bit more about these people over here. These people's lives are just as valuable. The guy that can't go to cancer treatment is just as valuable as that 84-year-old with an autoimmune issue and just had a heart attack but died of COVID on top of it. I mean, it's I would love to see a government issue say Minnesota on average loses 600 people in nursing homes every month. Has that fundamentally changed? Has that number changed with COVID? If we lost 317, that means every month we should have lost almost 1,000 people to COVID in March versus the 600. Now, if we still only lost, please don't bash me for this. If we lost the same number, did COVID really have the impact? Or are these heart attacks that COVID just happened to be in there?
Yeah. If we can we talk about opening again? I want to just kind of go back a little bit. When we talk about reopening, so a part of our deal is we're doing all these things. We don't really have a lot of guidance. Now, for you, you're saying you're going to open up. Now, over here, we're hearing things like if we have too many people on the mat, it's a $5,000 fine per person. We've heard there's going to be fines, maybe even some jail time if we have too many people in, or if we're not practicing.
We're told it's $1,000 a day for opening up. Fine.
So it's $1,000 a day if you open up during the lockdown.
Yeah.
Now, what about during the phase 1 that they're saying? Is there going to be like social distancing police coming into our academy and being like, how come those guys aren't?
And you think about it, we've just been crushed. I will not make a dime the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And had to put my savings into this, my retirement fund, to keep this business afloat this year. If you want to come in and start finding me on top of that, I mean, you're for students that know the risk and that they're choosing to come in. And that's partly too bad we can't all just unite and just open up and say unconstitutional. The 30% of students that are afraid of this, that still want to support the gym and understand we do online training best we can. People that have autoimmune issues, family member with autoimmune issues, they don't have to train. But I have 60% of my students that just have no fear of this.
Do you guys have Soul Cycle or any of those kind of places near you?
Soul Cycle.
Like where they have
thank God.
They have like exercise bikes in a room, and then they all there's like a DJ up front that kind of pumps them up to pedal their bike real fast, and those kind of.
We don't allow that in Minnesota. No. We have little training centers like that. We have a gym called 9 Round. Do you have them?
No, but are they
9 stations, and you go around, and then Farrell's and Orange Theory, and so we have little gyms that are 20 by 20, and they try to get 20 people in there doing a circuit.
Yeah, so for those fitness places, are they doing the social distancing thing where everyone has to wear masks, they're limiting the amount of people and all that
They're
stuff?
not open either, from what I understand.
So when you plan to open, you're waiting for everyone to open on the 18th?
I have a feeling our governor is going to extend it again. I think June 1st, hopefully enough businesses just say we're going to open up. It's unconstitutional.
So that's what we're all kind of waiting for.
You know, but it's scary. We don't really have lobbyists on our behalf. We're not rich enough for these people to care. We're not poor enough for these people to care. We're kind of stuck in this limbo of a small business owner. We don't have a giant business that pays lobbyists and pays certain things. We don't have anyone. And that's partly why I started the website, is hopefully we get enough people on there and talking about it, and then be like, we want to open up. We just want freedom. I kind of say, people ask me what politics I am. I believe in the Constitution, constitutionalist. I believe we have certain constitutional rights. They're not perfect. Libertarian. We have the liberal rights to do what we want. But I also say this, and people get mad at this one. I say I believe in Darwin. And everyone's like, oh, the strongest. No. Galapagos Islands didn't have any strong animals. They didn't have gorillas. They didn't have bears. They didn't have lions and tigers. They had animals that figured out a niche and lived and enjoyed it. For me, I don't need to be rich. I don't need to be 600 pounds and bench this. I need to find a life that hopefully I help a couple people along the way, get through some help their health, help this, live in a nice home, have a warm bed. I don't need a 7-bedroom mansion. I don't need anything like that. I like helping people. Right now, my mind is going crazy, and I haven't helped as many people as I normally, and that's where I get my energy. Like, teaching class is so hard for me right now, because I normally, I line up everyone, I see their energy, I'm like, yeah, Rick, yeah, John, yeah, let's get this going. And, I see their faces, and I just see their postures change, and they tell me how their marriage is better since they've been doing jiu-jitsu, and their health is better, and they're just, and I talked to one of my lawyers about doing a podcast like this, and the fear is I can offend a certain amount of people, saying all you care about is money. But hopefully I came across that you understand I don't care just about money. There's this life factor, but there's economics is important. Economics does. I had an older man tell me, without finance, you ain't getting romance. It's without finance, you ain't being able to afford health care. Money does. It shouldn't mean everything. And I don't say you need to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but being happy with what you do. If you make $60,000 a year and you can have your kids grow up in a fun, safe environment. I had a older person tell me that he was around the world. He was a military guy and pretty badass. And he was taught as a Marine to hate everyone. And then he goes, when I got older and I went around visiting these people, they're all just like us. They want a fun, safe environment to raise a family. We're not different. And right now, I think we're trying to draw this line and throw people over here or over here. It's like if you want to open up America, you're automatically a Trump fan and you hate people and you hate life and you only care about No, that's not true at all. I'm here and here. I care about people. It's like I said, if you haven't visited a nursing home in the last 20 years, you got to reevaluate your situation. If you haven't helped out an elderly, you haven't paid for someone's groceries, you haven't paid, the kids I pay for tournaments to do, I've changed my whole billing system to make it more affordable for families. And Nakapan and I have talked about this. It's not just about, I don't know if he has a Ferrari, but I picture him as it's great hair, but
I got a Toyota.
It's nice. It's a nice Toyota.
Yeah. Thank you. I think you're sharing some great insights and perspective with everybody. Our hope is to get this spread over the internet. We'll see, because when you mention anything around the virus, apparently YouTube has these algorithms that take you down. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Now, my part, and don't believe all my words. Go out and do your own research. Go out, think. Don't just be like, this is the end of the world. What bugs me right now is when I see the 22-year-old wearing a full hazmat outfit going to Home Depot. there's nothing at Home Depot he can't get delivered to his house. So is he spreading more panic and fear than is necessary? You know, I mean, why is he doing that? Is it for fashion? Is it to be a shock? You know, I feel like some of us are misrepresenting and making the 62-year-old person that may not read anything not want to go to the hospital. Imagine waking up from a coma right now from 6 months ago. You would think Ebola is going on, and we have a 32% death rate right now, the way people are acting.
It makes for a great Instagram story too if I'm wearing a hazmat suit. So
yeah,
it's all about the brand.
I hate social media. Hey, I do want to talk about one thing before we close, and that was saying that we were talking about economics and that type of thing. Is you are an experienced precious metals investor. How do you see all this government printing of money affecting the currency? What do you feel like is a good store of value? I'll give it to you.
It's pretty interesting. I have a friend that has an econ degree, and he doesn't think there'll be inflation. He's the only one. I have several bankers that have econ degrees. I mean, I really like my buddy. He comes from an interesting background, very intelligent, and maybe I hope he's right. But there's a push-pull method with inflation, but then there's a third method. When you print more money and have less supplies is the most inflation. So you print more money. Our food has gone down. We don't have as much food at our grocery stores. We don't have a certain level. I mean, factories are shutting down, so we have less supplies. So my fear is inflation. I buy silver partly as a retirement fund. And I was told by an older gentleman to buy that. And I started buying silver and learning about it in my 20s. I'm 46 now. I bought as much I made back then, about 15 years ago, was able to pay for my gym to get started. So that's why I took to start my gym. And I was willing to make that sacrifice because I love teaching martial arts. And it's just really sad, you know, how old is your gym?
We're past 10 years now, going on 11.
Yeah. So, you know, the first 6-7 years, you don't really get paid very much, you know, and I'm in my 10th year too. And it's like, oh, I finally get a paycheck. Smash.
We were just saying that.
Yeah. You know, it's like, but I do enjoy leveraging silver. I have it off to the side. I don't think it's to be all and end all. I have like a dozen of eggs. I put a certain amount in a few different investments. Stocks have always been confusing. All my research on them, I feel like stocks are definitely a fear-driven or positive-driven more than the assets of the company. Where I research silver, and silver is used in so many commodities, you know, in your car, in your cell phones, it's ionized on computers, it's on waffle chips. It's very usable, and that's why I buy silver. And right now, silver is so low versus gold. Normally, it's like a 35 to 1. $1 of silver is worth 35 gold. Now it's like 120 to 1. So talking to the silver reps have no clue why. What's weird, when you buy silver, say it's $15 an ounce, that's the spot. You pay $1 to $3 over spot. Right now, you're paying $10 over spot. So the value didn't go up. Normally, when that goes up, the spot starts going up and it always stays about $3 above at places you don't know people. Usually I try to pay $1 over spot. But now it's weird. Like my guys are like, I'm charging double. You know, it doesn't make sense. So there's something weird going on. I follow a website called kitco.com. You can go on there and read like some trends. I mean, right now, with not working, you can definitely go on and spend a little time. I recommend looking up silver versus real estate, how they flip-flop and how oil interacts with those three.
Yeah. And right now, I guess the system, as it were, is able to suppress the actual price of gold and silver at this moment, because once you begin to see these precious metals, the prices rise, then you know there's inflation, because that's kind of like always been the store of value that people go towards to hedge against currency inflation that's happening right now.
What for me is I hope to, if there is a shoot up in inflation, hopefully the silver I have can kind of off balance my car payment, my house payment, and some of that. And I'm hoping it will be able to hit a spot, and then we'll be able to figure it out within a certain period of time. I mean, hopefully as America, we can bounce back. We've learned from a lot of things. I just want to see us more united than separate. You know, like at these rallies, we don't have to raise a Trump flag to reopen Minnesota. You can be a Democrat that owns a business. But what happened was I think so many Trump people became there, and it became Republican versus Democrat. It's not about that. It's about health right now. Even the health it's Republican versus Democrat. Our health, both of us care about health.
Yeah.
And, I saw my mom die very young and had to be there for it. I saw my grandma. I saw several people. I saw a very young man. I was there while he passed. So I've been there on that experience. I almost died last year. I mean, I had my rights read to me, and my wife had a horrible poker face. After she met with the surgeon, she comes in and she's like, "You're going to survive." And then her face is saying, "You're going to die." So it's,
yeah.
I hate to say I was pretty at peace with it. If God takes me right now, he does. I mean, it's, hopefully I can have more influence on life. But as a human being, I don't feel productive right now. This has been the worst part of my stress in my life. And it's, my body feels all right now. This feels all right. I've been smart with my money in the past. My wife still has her job. I feel sorry for the couple families in our neighborhood that the wife was a nurse. She's laid off. And the husband was a small business owner, and they lost their business. That's our neighborhood is like this. That's quite a few of our neighbors in here. Almost every neighbor has been affected, where either the husband or wife has lost their job, and then a lot of wage cuts. A couple of doctors I know, just to make their hospitals work, they're cutting their wages in half. I mean, we're supposed to be and granted, I'm glad we're not overwhelmed with but
While there's all the collateral damage you're talking about, and while would be great to continue to sit at home and have the government pay our bills, just remember, every time they print money, they're debasing the currency, and they are reducing anybody who has any savings. They are reducing the value of your money.
Well, and really, I know what type of person you are. If I could put you in a glass bubble and tell you could live to 125, but you had to drink 4 ounces of kale, you only could wear cotton underwear, you couldn't ever be touched, no sex, no driving, no this, would you really want to do it? There's a balance between living forever, which no one can. We forget that. All we can do is prolong life. We can't save life. We will pass. And I think in the society right now, compared to 100 years ago, we just don't see anyone, so it shocks us so much. And it is scary. I mean, I held my mom's hand while she passed. It was not a good moment. It was a difficult situation. So, I mean, I do care about life, and please don't tell me I don't care about old people if you haven't visited a nursing home in the last 20 years. Not a relative either.
With that said,
wait, can I ask him one more question?
Yeah.
So when you do reopen, I know, sorry, we're going over, but I just want to, because I want to follow up. I want to talk again closer to reopening, because I want to hear how you do it. Like, what do you plan on doing differently, as far as, are you going to do by appointment only, online reservations? Because like our academy before this whole thing, we were super cool, super chill. People just come in, yeah, man, go ahead, take class. And now it's like, has to be a controlled environment. I thought that the rules were only solo training. But from what I hear from you, you have a system to where you can have 3 or 4 people as long as they agree to certain.
They haven't told us that. We have to kind of write. Our governor asked us to write in and say, how do you think we could reopen?
So what's your plan for reopening? What do you plan on doing a little differently to give people that peace of mind? Like that's what
the peace of mind is going to be up to the individual. I mean, they're going to, if they want to wear masks, they're going to be able to wear masks. We're going to try to do smaller group traiking. I recommend doing temperature testing. We're going to do our best on that. If your temperature goes up, I'll have you 4 partners, then they, have to take off. It's very hard because, a lot of gyms put where you only can train twice a week or 3 times a week, and you have to be there Tuesday, Thursdays. I had one guy that trained 31 days in a row, and I think he did 2-a-days, 17 of them. It's very hard to put restrictions on this. So right now I'm talking to a couple doctors. Hopefully we can get that breathalyzer. I mean, that'd be the best thing ever. Instant test, but temperature is a pretty good thing. I think
we're kind of going.
Constitutionally, we just got to let our students want to do it or not do it.
Yeah, because we're kind of going a little bit overboard. I feel like we're gonna make masks mandatory. We're going to do temperature checks when you walk in. So if you're above 99.5, you cannot enter the building. So we're going to make everybody. Yeah, no touch ones. I got 4 of them. They're 150 each, man. I can't believe how expensive that was. So we're going to make everyone wait outside, by appointment only, no walk-ins. They have to reserve their spot in class. 5 minutes before class, we do temperature checks. Everybody put on a mask, take off your outside shoes, put on your inside shoes, go straight to class. Don't use the locker room. We got sneeze guard.
I didn't know corona was spread by feet.
Well, that's what the doctors told us. We had an internal medicine doctor and a cardiologist. They told us that the germs from outside could contaminate. So we're like, all right, then we're going to make everyone put the shoes in a bag.
See, I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid that we're going to hurt our immune system so bad we're going to have a massive colitis outbreak. And it's already happening.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And then we're doing.
Because remember, I almost died from overcleaning.
Yeah, see isn't that what MRSA is, right? MRSA's like staph, but it's like the next level of staph where it's immune.
It's antibiotic resistant staph.
Yeah, so
I mean, you know how that got developed?
Probably from overcleaning.
Yes.
We use antibiotics.
What kind of super bug are we going to develop that our bodies won't be able to handle in 10 years? You know what I mean? The corona has came through here many times at different levels. Certain age groups are handling this better than others. Farming communities are handling this way better than others. Knock on wood, doctors and nurses and people in childcare are handling this better. They've been exposed to more viruses. Their immune system is stronger.
I don't want to oversimplify, but it says that, so you're not going to change too much when you open up. You're going to try your best.
I'm going to do all the protocols they tell me, and I'm going to try. You
think they're going to, like, what kind of protocols do you think they're going to kind of force? I guess
that's what I'm going to go by.
Yeah. Okay. So whatever they do, I guess. Yeah. All right. I was just saying maybe you had an insight for me.
He's looking for the shortcut.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. All right, that's the only question.
I just want everyone to know. I mean, I think all life is precious. I think we went about this wrong. We should went into a phase system of people on and off. I think right now we do need a certain group of people, to get moving. I'm not an expert on body floor, but a few people I've talked to are experts on it, and they have the huge concerns about that. So it's
we
put me in the corner here and reopening. My students are going to be like, Tom doesn't care.
No,
I have a nurse who's also a farm girl, and she talks about how her immune system's just different. She grew up in diving in the pig trough or cow trough, with all the mucus from their face. And, my grandpa was 88 years old. He was a chicken farmer, was dirty, and did cows. He was never sick a day in his life. Medicare got a hold of him and said they never had a doctor visit from him in his life, not even his birth on record. Never sick a day in his life. So, I remember him washing off a sandwich after digging manure all day and going, and eating it.
Lewis has a problem with poop. You can't deal with it.
A little much.
But hey, Tom, I really appreciate all the information, all your efforts on here. If you want to know more about his movement, 1927logic.com, go to it. Because a lot of good information there, a lot of doctors he's talking to, he's making it available. He's trying to raise awareness about this. He's also an activist on behalf of small businesses. He's also an awesome martial artist and all-around good guy.
And also an activist for life.
Yeah. Yeah. We really appreciate you, man, for being on the show. And we'll touch base. We've been in contact pretty much the whole time. So we'll continue to stay connected, and perhaps when this thing starts to let up a little bit, we can have you back on, talk a little bit more about, what we're doing in our schools. And
I'm going to do everything I can to make, I'm not trying to oversimplify everything. I'm going to do everything I can to make it for my students. I'm still talking to a couple doctors that I really respect on some protocols, and hopefully I'm in line for a new testing kit.
Yeah.
That's not super available. It will be fairly expensive, but hopefully it will be covered. And then hopefully if I can show that our students don't catch it, then this could open up a bunch of other stuff quick.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to know what the results are. And
yeah, I want to keep in touch.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And wasn't that scary to be on the podcast with you guys?
good stuff, man. Really appreciate you. We'll stay in touch. Great to see you all. And again, big shout out to all the students. Thank you so much for supporting us and supporting the school and supporting what we're doing. And we'll continue to produce this content, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yep. Thank you.
Take care.
Peace.